Thank you, Satish. Everybody can hear me okay? All right, perfect. Hey, thanks a lot, everyone. It's a big investment of your time, and we certainly hope we'll be able to drive some value out of this conversation. Satish said ANAND RAMACHANDRAN. Recently, as of 6 months ago, I've started a company called Fantain. What we are trying to do is, rediscover the fan management space as far as sports fans is concerned. We think sports fans are extremely important for sports franchisees, but they're not very well served. So we are building the next generation social, mobile, cloud-based platform for sports fans to interact with sports franchisees, and that's what we are trying to do. But what I wanted to speak to you by way of an introduction, by way to give you a sense of what I've gone through, is how this whole thing happened. As Satish mentioned, I've spent 15, 16 years in the workforce. A bulk of that time I've worked for Wipro. Over 10 years in the US selling for Wipro. I'm a sales guy. I've sold into the retail consumer goods segments and based in the US for such a long time. Moved back to India 2 years ago. The question really becomes, what prompted me to leave what many would consider a good job. I was general manager at Wipro. I was doing okay. And why did I take the step that I did? And whether you're thinking of starting a startup on your own, or whether you're thinking of joining a startup, I guess some of the things that you think about when you make such a decision would be similar. So I'm hoping some of this will resonate. There comes a point in many of your careers, mid-career professionals, when you suddenly realize that you could be kind of an autopilot and then do the things that you've always been doing, right? You've done, let's say, sales for a long time, or you've done product management for a long time, or finance for a long time. You kind of realize that you could operate at 60, 70% of your capability, and you'll still get your paycheck. Chances are you'll still get rated significantly above plan. You will get your promotions and things like that. But at some point of time, at least this happened to me, it became a very, unsettling. I found that I was just about hitting 40, and not even 40. I've got a big, portion of my life ahead of me, and I felt that I was coursing around a little. I had settled in too much into what I was doing, and that I found to be very unsettling. Many of you would say you feel bored at work, and I'm sure, speaking to colleagues, we always talk about the fact that we get bored and things like that. So the question really becomes, when you're bored, what does that mean, and what do you do with that? That's point number one. And that acted as a huge trigger for me. The fact that I was settled was very unsettling in some sense. The second thing is that I have always said that I wanted to be on my own. I remember the first interview I took after I graduated from B school. The question was, what are your long-term aspirations? What are your long-term ambitions? And I said, I want to start my own company. And around a year ago, I realized that I've always said I wanted to start my own company. And if I didn't do anything now, it was almost as if I was kind of lying to myself, right? And that is a very powerful notion. You could lie to others. I guess that's okay. But you can't lie to yourself. And I felt that, given where we are, we are talking about mid-career professionals, and I'm expecting many of you to be, have spent 10 to 20 years in the workspace. Where we are, if you do not take the decision to do what you want to do, either start your own firm or to join a startup which is considered a little risky, I guess you're letting go of a huge opportunity. For me, it was around, whether I could afford to be on my own, right? Whether I could, what are the inhibitions, what are the inhibitors in some sense to being on my own? And there were actually two. One was, it was considered risky to be in a startup or to do a startup, right? And I struggled with this notion for a while. And what helped me was a very structured process. I said, this risk, this apparent risk of doing your own startup, I decided to quantify it in some sense. So I thought about, okay, how many years does it take to get a startup going? How many years does it take to get it established? What is the best case? What is the worst case? Put a dollar figure, put a rupee figure against all of those things, and then compare it very simply with the amount of money that you've saved up. Having been meaningfully employed for 15 years, we have, all of us, or many of us, have got some amount of money saved up. And for me, it was very easy to make a decision once I did that calculation, because I had more money saved up than what I thought it would take to do a startup and give it a chance for success. So, you know, if there is something that you can take away from this, it is this. Don't just talk about, you know, this being risky. Try to think about quantifying that risk, trying to put a monetary value to it, and then you will realize that a lot of times these risks can be taken. The second thing that acted as an inhibiting factor was for me, and I actually struggled with the notion for a while, and I was not even sure if that's the right way of looking at it. Very conscious of what others thought of me leaving a nice job and starting off something on my own. Let's face it, you start a Fantain, it might go nowhere. So I was, whether I liked it or not, whether I like to accept it today or not, I was very conscious of what others thought of, you know, doing my own startup. And 6 months into the startup, I can conclusively tell you, nobody gives a shit as to what happens to you, right? There are probably 1-2% of the folks in the world who you've got to take along with you because this decision will impact them. And there are probably 1-2% of the world who you will never be able to convince. For example, my father-in-law will never be convinced that I've done a smart thing because, hey, he's my father-in-law, right? But the large majority of the people that you're basing your decision on don't give a shit. You know, they're happy if you're at Wipro, they're happy if you're at Fantain. So it's your decision is something that I kind of, you know, felt, and this is something that, you know, drove me to take the decision. The greatest thing that I think entrepreneurship has given me in the last 6 months is flexibility. You know, what it has given me is the ability to do whatever I want. I've got enough time to do whatever I want to do, and I have no time to do what I don't want to do. So folks who are, you know, mid-career professionals who are in that phase, you know, who want to, who are considering a move, think about it from that perspective. If there is a laundry list of things that you want to do, you know, you've got to be in a startup. Yeah.
Thanks, Anand.